Everyone is very confused, right? People think that AI is going to take their job. Some of them think that AI is making them 10x more faster. So what do you think? Like, is AI going to take your job?
So syntax is out of the picture completely. I genuinely believe that AI is not something that you have to fear. They can make you more efficient as an engineer.
Comes to coding, right? How can somebody leverage AI for coding?
I think lately have been able to give you implementation, so engineers don't need to spend time implementing things.
Like, which all resources did you pick?
There's a playlist that I really followed.
How can somebody start with research papers if he's a beginner?
I think doing a with a professor, like I mentioned, is a great way to get out a research paper. Yeah, and in order to build your visibility, I think you can use a to show what you're building and to reach out and make connections and create that network of people who might help you.
So what do you think is the part that should be there in the resume that would make my resume more hireable, or I'll start getting more interview calls?
That's actually a very great question, because a software engineer resume versus a ML engineer resume is pretty different, and most important parts would also be.
As you mentioned, right, you are an ML engineer at Google. So if you can quickly run through how did you start, what was your journey? Just maybe I think viewers would be very interested to know that.
So I did my BTech in CS from NIT Trichy, and that is where my foundation in ML actually started, because college is a time when you get to explore several different options, and that time ML was not as a hot topic as it is today.
Yeah.
But it was a good area to explore, and because I wanted to also go for higher studies at some point, so I got into ML because it was a new field. There were a lot of new research coming up, and that time it was pre LLM era,
Yeah.
so not much had come up back then.
If we'll break down the skill set, right? If at all somebody who is in 2026 wishing to go through the same route, same path, what all skill set do you feel is relevant that he or she should go through?
So, in general, what I feel is there are multiple areas to this whole AI ML space, right? Starting with the data set, how to handle data set. I think the biggest part, because now there are a lot of foundational models already out there, and nobody's really working on base foundational models
Yeah.
because it's really difficult to train them. Data set serves as another second most important thing apart from the foundational models. How to deal with data sets, how to get the right data for your models, that is a big skill in the pre-model phase, right? A few people who are interested in research are more interested in exactly what models do within and want to train their own models, work on faster and better models. They can work on the model training part, and they can get into it through education itself. I think a lot of people do PhD where they focus on getting out new research and kind of experimenting with already existing models too. Then comes the fine tuning phase, which a lot of companies nowadays are doing, because everybody has the foundational model in their hand, and they, for example, train LoRa adapters on top of it, add some other layers to the foundational model, and do some hampering with the base model to use it, right? So that is another space where people can grow their expertise in. Post it, I think inference lately has been really expensive, and companies are finding it more and more difficult to spend billions of dollars into the AI space. So inference is another category where people can learn optimizations, people can learn how to actually make these models usable in the real world. So overall, majorly, I think these are some areas where people can focus and people can grow expertise in.
We are in the state that everyone is very confused, right? People think that AI is going to take their job. Some of them think that AI is making them 10x more faster. So what do you think? Like, is AI going to take your job? Is AI the next big thing? Or how are you leveraging AI to make your job or yourself better?
I genuinely believe that AI is not something that you have to fear. As you said, AI is making everybody 10x more efficient, which is true actually. A single person is able to bring up an entire company because of an AI, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if used as agents instead of just entirely replacing your job, they can make you more efficient as an engineer. In the earlier days, also, tech was something that was an ever changing field. People had to keep up with their learnings, people had to keep up with the new technology that is coming in the industry. Now with AI coming in, it just adds a new vertical to your learning, right? Because even a software engineer needs to grow the skill how to use AI.
Yeah.
What does a token mean, how they can leverage it to build some automations and build agents that can actually complement their work, right? So for a normal person to go into a 10x and to become a 10x engineer, they need to use AI.
Yeah.
So it just become more universal, I think, with its boom. And I don't think it's something to fear. I think people can actually do wonders if they use AI rightly.
And what are your day-to-day workflows? Like, what do you use AI for? Which all tools do you use, and how do you leverage those?
I use AI in all domains of my life, not just work, but obviously automating my grunt work is something that I do. So I can focus more time on the 10% that actually requires thinking.
When it comes to coding, right? How can somebody leverage AI for coding?
I think lately agents have been able to give you implementation plans once you give them a design, or they are even able to come up with design, and then you can ask it to also implement things.
The tools like Cursor, Claude Code, and stuff, right?
Yeah.
People are
People
using
can
that
use.
very extensively, and like that has become the norm.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think just the implementation part of things have been very simplified by AI, and it's doing it very well lately. So engineers don't need to spend time implementing things. So syntax is out of the picture completely.
Yeah. And like let's come on to resources, right? There are so many resources, there's so much noise out there. Like some of like people do prefer watching videos, some prefer reading text. There's so many other contests, competitions that happen. How did you like which all resources did you pick, or what should be the right strategy of picking resources for getting into this field?
So I completed my BTech in 2023, and
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that if I'm not wrong, 2024 was when chatbots came into picture. 2025 was probably RAG, and then 2026 was probably agentic AI. And I feel like all these can be used to leverage the learning in itself. So before I even start to explain how can somebody get into AI or ML, I feel like using AI to learn AI is the best thing that students can do nowadays. If you're in college, if you're in school, or even if you're a software engineer or wanting to become an ML engineer, you can leverage AI in order to learn instead of using it as something to replace your thinking, right? But if I would have to speak about how to get into the MLAI space, uh, so I come from pre-LLM era. So when I was in college, I think the coursework was something that served as a foundation for getting into ML. So if you're starting over, if you're starting from scratch, you can first dive into maths because it serves as a very important aspect of ML AI in general. So getting into linear algebra, getting into statistics, knowing the basics of calculus, differentiation, partial differentiation might be some important skills just to understand how AI works, right? And I think as we move ahead, explainable AI is something that is becoming a hot topic because AI is no more a black box, and you can't even treat it as that because it is so universally available that it is very important to know what goes behind the scenes. And in order to understand that, math is something that you really require. You need to understand how vectors work, what are vectors, how matrix multiplication works, and so on. So I think if you want to build a base, you should get into all these subjects. And for me, luckily, NIT Trichy was a great place to learn all these subjects. And I had great professors who were very experienced and have been in the field for a really long time. So that served as my foundation. Now coming to the languages, right? I used to do my DSA in C++. So for people who are doing DSA in Python, it's easy for them because they can use Python in MLAI extensively. But obviously, async programming and other parts of Python is something that one should explore. On the data side, I think, again, data manipulation and data exploration is something that you should know using Python, like pandas, data frames, using them, and matplotlib, how to graph data, how to read and interpret data in general. These are some really important skills that one must grow in the early parts.
And what all resources did you pick for all of these? For example, if I want to go and learn mathematics or probability, right? If I want to go and learn a programming language, if I want to go and practice something like building something or doing a simple project of machine learning, what I should do or which all resources should I follow? Yeah.
So I heavily relied on using books and YouTube playlists because back then ChatGPT was not a thing.
Yeah.
So Three Blue One Brown is a playlist that I really followed, and there are for these basic things. I think understanding the concepts is more important. So I prefer reading instead of actually watching a tutorial because it takes away your thinking power, right?
Yeah.
So I think people should sit with a pen and paper and with a book or probably a video explaining the concepts, go through problems on their own, and this is how they can learn,
Yeah, I
right?
think it's a personal choice at some point of time. Some people prefer watching videos, some
Yeah.
would go and read a book and read a research paper and do something. It's a
Yeah.
personal choice, but yeah, I'll take some resources from her and I'll put it in the description where you can go and check out those resources in terms of videos or text or whatever she would have followed.
Yeah, so once you have gotten your maths and your Python ready, I think you should dive into learning libraries like TensorFlow and PyTorch are some libraries that you can explore. And there are other libraries for data manipulation that you can focus on. Once I've built the basic foundations, what I did was I moved into very simple ML concepts like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, neural networks. Let's say, what is a perceptron, what is a multi layer perceptron, and stuff like that. And if you want to check it out, I think Andrew NG is hands down still the best course till day that explains all these concepts in depth, right?
Even I did that in my college second year or third year.
Yeah. And I think one advice I would have for anybody who is starting is they should implement the simplest things from scratch. I know that a recent new playlist has come up by Andrew Karpathy.
Yeah.
And Karpathy actually implements the most simplest things in his videos end to end. And it helps you understand how systems work in depth from within, right? And although obviously if you check it out, there are 100 GitHub repos that are doing the same thing and you can pick up the code and put it, but nothing beats you sitting down and hands-on
Unit class.
implementing. Yeah. So I would suggest that you learn how neural networks function, how the back propagation goes and all of that. And this is explained by Andrew NG in depth. So you can go over those courses.
So I think the more time you spend with yourself and the laptop learning about it would make you better at your job rather than all the resources. So yeah, you can follow any resources. All of them have taught at some point of time. Like they've taught well, but it's more of how much time you spend and how much hands-on you are when you're building something. It's not just watching videos, but practicing or implementing some things on the go that would help you grow.
Yeah. And back then, I think we had time to explore like computer vision, NLP, and so on. So we also looked into CNNs. We built these really basic projects like traffic sign detection and other projects that were actually really cool back then. Now they've become something that are basics. But you can sit down and build such small projects to learn how systems work. And yeah, now that we come to NLP, I think one of the basic things that you should know is how a transformer works inside. Start with the attention is all you need paper. Sit with it. It's a difficult paper, but yeah, I think you can find a lot of illustrations online where they explain how the math
You can go
inside.
to Claude and ask for somebody explain it to you like a 10-year-old. I think you'll get that.
Yeah. Back then, we used to sit with LSTMs, RNNs, and
GANs.
yeah, GANs and CNNs and do all these things. So, yeah, I think now that is not required. You can get into how transformers work, how actually these big LLMs work. And yeah, I think RAG is something that was the next hot topic. So getting into how these RAG systems work, how you can build databases for these RAGs, which are different, they're vector databases. So how data can be manipulated to be used into your RAG systems, that is something that you can look into. And then comes the agentic AI era. You can see how to build agents, how tool calling actually works, how building an agent from scratch, for example, just attach it to you something like a calendar or something that you use every day, right?
Basic N8 agents, or let's say
Yeah.
a more enterprise version with security and guardrails. So a lot of platforms, even I have taught that on my channel, so they would know if they've seen those videos. But I think a lot of information is available, and it's just that how you use it efficiently, because people can save a lot of time learning all of that, right? Maybe 3 years back, somebody would have spent 10 hours learning the same thing. Now you can do that in 1 hour. I think that's the leverage that you have in 2026.
Yeah, that is why I'm not even stating resources for agentic AI, because I think that is so readily available out there. And I think our
Even
attention.
Google has their own courses, right? So Google
Yeah.
launches courses from time to time. So they have their agentic AI course that's also very, very relevant and very like comprehensive and good.
Yeah, you can just sit with Gemini or ChatGPT and just talk to it and clear out concepts on the go. Instead of actually going for resources, it can plug in all of it. I think in order to learn, you can also use Notebook LM. You can put every resource that you want to study into it, and it can generate audiobooks, it can generate presentations and readable decks for you. And back then, I remember in college, even as finding a good summarizer was a really big task, and now it's so readily available for you on your hands. So the last thing you should actually do as a student is to use it to replace all your thinking, because I think I'm really glad that I grew up in an era where we didn't have all these tools, because we had to go through 10 different websites in order to even write an assignment, right? And information is so readily available nowadays that humans might just end up becoming dumber instead of smarter. So you need to really know how to leverage these tools in the right manner, right? And I think another skill where is very important for an ML engineer is reading research papers. Most of the people don't really understand research papers while they read them. They don't understand what is the delta from the previous last innovation, right? So going through a research paper, knowing what existing technologies exist in the field, what technologies already exist in the field, and knowing what the delta is, what added value this research paper brings, is something that you need to know in this domain.
Yeah, understood. So we have covered a lot of skill set and resources that you would need to become an AI or an ML engineer. But I think let's come on to, right, when we're applying for jobs and we're not hearing back from companies. So what do you think is the part that should be there in the resume that would make my resume more hireable, or I'll start getting more interview calls?
That's actually a very great question, because a software engineer resume versus a ML engineer resume is pretty different. And an ML resume mostly focuses on building, having and showing domain knowledge, actually, right? So I would say one of the most important parts would also be, if I had to start with a college, right? I would say is, maintain your CGPA. Although it might be outdated nowadays, I don't know, actually, you should check. But back in my day, at least, CGPA was something that companies did look at. And because ML is something where you need to be good at some sort of education or have a great skill, they would actually judge you by your CGPA, right? So I think having a good CGPA, focusing on your college courses, is something that I would recommend. You can start with that. Now, going ahead, there are three things, right? There's projects, there's internships, and then there is awards. So how to build projects? You need to build projects that not only show your implementation, but also show that you are able to carry multiple tasks, know how the system works, and have knowledge about it. So if you talk about software engineer, they used to build these full stack projects, right? For ML, I think it is important to build projects that showcase one thing in depth. For example, if you pick a knowledge graph, then you need to not just implement a knowledge graph, but build it in a use case where it leverages all its functions. It kind of highlights that you know ins and outs of this system, and you're able to explain that system in depth just by seeing the project, right? So more than functionality, I think you should focus on the depth of the project. That is how you build projects, I think. And obviously you can't sit with a tutorial and copy it. That used to be something that developers for now do. But I think for ML projects, it's really difficult to do that. We used to build stock prediction and chart image.
Twitter sentiment analysis.
Sentiment analysis was a great project. So all such projects actually serve as a great thing. But I think in order to add credibility to your projects, you need to associate it with something outside. So now there are a couple of ways you can do this to build credibility in your projects. One is you can reach out to professors from great universities inside in India and outside India. Both, for example, ISC Bangalore and other IIT Delhi, probably you can cold email to these professors, and some actually reach back. And you might have to do a little bit of grunt work on the side just because you're a newbie, but I think it will be worth it, because you're just getting in the field and you need that experience. That is for you, not for the professor. It attaches you with a great name. It attaches you with a great university name also, and that builds credibility to your
You
project.
also did MyTex, right? So what was that? If you can briefly tell people about it. It's no more for Indian students, is what I know. But I've also created a lot of videos. You can share your experience, like what did you do there and how was the program?
In my time, MyTax was something that you apply for. It's in Canada, so you can do a research project under a professor in a university in Canada. I did it with Cape Breton University, and it was also related to knowledge graphs in the healthcare domain. So a lot of my projects are related to healthcare domain, because I am a bit passionate about the mixture of healthcare and AI. But MyTax is outdated, but that's not the only opportunity that is there. There are other opportunities by these big companies like Samsung, like Google. For example, Samsung has this program called Prism, where they partner with some professors in your university, and you can do a 6-month long research project under them.
I think that's also not happening right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that happened in my time. But
But there are more opportunities, like there's something known as outreachy internship. There's a lot of IITs who come up with research internships every year. You can go to IIT Bombay, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur, Roorkee, and do internships at their campuses with their professors. And most of the projects nowadays you'll get are somehow related to AI or ML. So I think that's a good leverage that you can take right now.
Yeah, I think there are other programs which are not ML specific, like Google Summer of Code, GSOC, which also have great ML projects and
Yeah.
they give you an opportunity to work with a big name. I don't know if apprenticeship is something that.
There's something like Google Apprenticeship. So these are in
Yeah.
4 different domains. Not data science to be specific, but more of application engineering and software engineering. But maybe you'll get some work of data science if you're into software engineering somehow.
Yeah, and if you're not getting any of these, then you can obviously apply to internship in some small startups or probably some other local companies also that are around you. That's a great way to just get into the field. Apart from opportunities to just work on a project, there are also some knowledge sharing opportunities that were existed in my time. For example, Amazon's ML Summer School.
Yeah.
That was something that had some great sessions by industry speakers, right? So yeah, it was great to just
Be a part of it.
be a part of it and be a part of the community. Apart from it, I think in college there are these clubs. For example, we had a programming club called Delta in my college, which you could join, and that would give you access to the people who are like-minded, and you'll obviously find people working under the domain that you're interested in. Yeah, so if somebody is just getting into college, they can explore these clubs and try getting it with them.
Also, we're just discussing, right? I think research papers also play an important part in this journey because you're somehow into ML research or you're into AI research. How can somebody start with research papers if he's a beginner?
If you're a beginner and in college, or not even in college, just a beginner outside and not associated to a big company, I think doing a project with a professor, like I mentioned, is a great way to get out a research paper. Even if it's a small project, what you do is you see what is existing in the domain. So you read, let's say, 10 research papers that are related to the field. See what shortcomings those papers have and see how you can improve them. And you can just write another research paper on a Delta Plus on top of that research, right? So, most important part of the research paper is its USP. So, you write an abstract stating that this is what is happening in the domain and this is how you can improve it, right? So, any small project can become a research paper if you actually sit with it and actually describe the entire project in detail. You can associate yourself to a professor who can help you publish the research paper. If you're associated with a big company and you're doing some novel project, they also help you get patent. So you can speak to your manager or speak to somebody higher up in the leadership in order to publish your research paper.
Got it. And research papers definitely would help you get, even if you're planning for masters abroad, I think research papers play a very, very important part. Even if you're interviewing for research roles in top companies like, for example, Microsoft Research or let's say Google DeepMind. So if you have a research paper in the domain that they're hiring for, right, you already are at a very, very good advantage than rest of the candidates.
That is true. And if you're in college, the final year project that you have, you can associate it to be something related to ML and you can get that out because you get a dedicated 3 months of time to work on it, right? So you can leverage the time in order to get
Plus, I would want to add, right? She basically got this opportunity when she was in college. But let's say if you are not in a good college or you are looking out for an opportunity, there are so many different ways through which you can get those. Programs like Amazon ML Summer School, they also give an opportunity to interview at Amazon for an applied scientist intern or applied scientist full-time role. Plus, just look out for these opportunities. I keep on sharing about them a lot. Other off-campus opportunities, there's so many startups who get funded in India, right? If you'll go and search for the startups which got funded in April 2026, you will get a long list of people who would have raised like 2 million or 5 million or 3 million. Go understand what that startup does. Go to LinkedIn, look out for an engineering manager there or somebody who's into head of reliability or platforms or somebody, maybe a founder or a co-founder or a CTO. Just message them that you went to their startup, you are interested in working with them and tell them what can they improve on their current product. I think that feedback would help you jump on a call with them and then you can pitch in what you are doing and they would readily be happy. They will be very happy to take you as an intern there. So I think that's a very, very good strategy that you can get for an off-campus opportunity like this.
That's actually a very great point, and that hits a chord to me that one thing that is really actually a hot topic in 2026 is probably open source. Whatever you're building, you must build it in public.
We've seen OpenClaw, right? So OpenClaw was something that somebody was building on site and now it got acquired by OpenAI and the guy is working with OpenAI. And this is just one example. There are so many different things that happened in open source.
Yeah, and in order to build your visibility, I think you can use LinkedIn to show what you're building and to reach out and make connections and create that network of people who might help you. Also, another thing is there are some projects which are open source that you can contribute to directly. For example, Hugging Face, I think you can go, you can fix something and let them know, and they might actually consider it into the project. And that's a great way to build credibility, right? Because you show that you've worked on this huge
participate in hackathons,
yeah.
right? Now hackathons are a way to get these opportunities. Day before yesterday, I was at a Meta hackathon, and the winners were supposed to get an interview opportunity at Meta. It does not matter like you're from which college or what company you're working at. So you get an opportunity directly if you do something good in the hackathons. It's totally based upon what skill set do you have and how are you leveraging those skill sets. That's very important.
Yeah, I think in 2026 you should really put yourself out there and create all spaces that are required to
Any
attract
final
luck.
piece of advice that you have for people?
Okay, a great piece of advice that I take from my personal life is when I used to go bottom up, right? I used to take a lot of time to reach up. And when I used to go top down, I used to never understand things on the top. Now, in this fast paced world, it's really difficult to and go through the entire roadmap for 3 months. So, for anybody who is new, I would suggest do both top down and bottom up. And I think dots will connect somewhere in the middle because the world is moving so fast that it is really difficult to just keep reading from the foundations and building up to that level, right? And it's also really difficult to understand the high level things without knowing the foundations. I think if you do both parallelly, you're bound to build some sort of understanding. And tech is not, I genuinely love tech because it's something that whoever you meet, no matter at what level, they're likely to tell you that I don't know this and I'm not aware. And it's not something that is very new because it's such a huge space that it's probably impossible
For
anybody to know everything, right? So I think it's okay to not know things, but it is more important that you try and know as much as possible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Saloni. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope
Thank you, same
people
here.
understood a lot of stuff that you have been doing and how have you leveraged it. She's also started creating content on YouTube. I'll put down the channel's link in the description. You can go and check that out. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much.